Everything we do these days is recorded as data and sold to the highest bidder. Plugging our personal data into impersonal algorithms has made government agencies more efficient and tech companies more profitable. But at what price? How do the rich and powerful use math to exploit us? And what can we do to beat them at their own game? This is one of the fundamental questions of Noah Giansiracusa's Robin Hood Math. Take control of the algorithms that run your life. Let us wade into this quagmire with the author himself. But first, dear listener, a reminder: like, follow, subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening or watching. We got some great stuff coming up, more music, some film, some philosophy. We are your one-stop shopping for intellectual curiosity. Okay, so back to the business at hand. Today's business, math. As Jason will tell you, or my financial planner, not my strong suit. So please welcome this week's Fresh Face in Hell, the man tasked with explaining numbers to me, Mr. Noah Giansiracusa. Noah, thanks for joining us. I'm going first name only from here on out.
I
12
recommend
letters,
it.
that ain't easy to fit on a baseball jersey, man.
That's right. Well, it's great to be here, and I just promise your listeners we're gonna go gentle on the math. If you hate math, you're my target audience. I'm here for you.
That's perfect. That's what I want to hear. I'm a mathematical thinker. I'm just not an equation guy. I mean, I was
Okay.
sleeping through high school or high on acid, so I just didn't take it in, but I think I have the capacity to learn it. So you are a mathematician by trade. This is maybe the first time since, Robin Hood that I've thought about math as a democratizing force. Usually, as you know, it works the opposite way. So let's start at the beginning. When did the algorithmic takeover begin? I mean, give us a little historical context.
I mean, you could go way, way, way back, right? Like math and algorithms have been around since ancient times, used for tax purposes, collecting. But let's fast forward to more kind of recent history. I think where algorithms really start to take over is what happened was the Obama's presidential campaign really was the first big campaign to leverage data and really try to target not just voters, but campaign organizers, volunteers. Really, just this idea that the more we know about people, the more we can leverage that insights and do something with it. And there was a lot of excitement, not just among liberals for Obama, but among, I would say, kind of tech and data people that, wow, we have this powerful tool that we haven't been utilizing enough. It was used in Wall Street, right? Bankers are using it to hedge in hedge funds and manage risk and all this stuff. But that ordinary people's lives could be touched by it. It was really inspiring. But the problem is, we very quickly went from this time of great hope and excitement to people realizing there is a lot of power and potential here. And I don't want to necessarily say corrupt forces, but certainly commercial forces really stepped in, and algorithms kind of became dominant in industry. And then it became about maximizing profit, trying to get everyone addicted to all kinds of platforms and apps, trying to squeeze every penny out of us. And it just really changed things. So I think that's the algorithmic takeover, is just realizing you can do a lot with these things. So people they'll find a way and make money off it.
The man is always trying to fuck us, man. It's this way with science. Every time we come up with some great scientific discovery, the military's all over it. Everybody's looking to leverage it into some tool to, shift the balance of power. There's really no argument that algorithms shape our lives. You say I say lampshade, and next thing you know, there's a bunch of lampshade advertisements on my feed, which there will be after this podcast, actually. What are some of the less obvious, but possibly more insidious ways that these algos shape our lives?
I mean, it's hard to know where to begin. My brother, who's also a math professor, was just telling me, because I always just assume that story that you go on your social media feed and you see something that was exactly what you were talking about the previous day. As a mathematician, I thought, that's just psychology. You have so many conversations and you're on social media so often that statistically that's going to happen by chance. It doesn't mean anything. And he said, no, you know that your phone actually knows what other phones are near it by Bluetooth. And if you're like walking down the hallway and you pass your phone will get the data that you were physically near your friend, and that can actually enter into your social media feed. So he was more the conspiratorial type, saying there is so much data that you're not aware of. It's not just, oh, I was shopping for basketball shorts and then they recommended, that I watch a basketball program. It goes way deeper. So on social media, there's endless things, but I'll give a couple more examples. One is just really basic. We kind of overlook it, which is algorithm doesn't just mean fancy machine learning or nowadays AI. It's really any kind of recipe or formula or kind of automated process for making an action, making a decision, doing something. So a really basic thing, algorithm that impacts all of us, I would say, is our credit scores, like our FICO score. That's a formula, but you could call it an algorithm for rating how viable each of us is for receiving loans and having credit and getting jobs. That's an algorithm that impacts all of our lives. And I would put it in the insidious category. You don't know how it works. I'm a math professor. I don't know in full detail how it works. Most people don't, and yet it's impacting all of our lives and really, deciding what jobs we get. So all kinds of things. So that's a very simple algorithm. Has nothing to do with the fancy stuff Google and Meta use, and yet it's still pervasive.
Yeah, the credit card one's weird though because it's like if you have a bad credit score, you run up your debt with the credit card company, you're gonna have a hard time getting a home loan, but they're the first ones to up your limit, right? Like if I
Mhm.
want to up my limit and I pay every month, they don't up my limit. I start getting up towards my whatever my limit is, 20 grand or whatever, and they're like, "Hey, we're just gonna up you to 25 now." So it's weird how they sort of working it from both sides. We want you to owe us money, but we're not gonna lend you money for something else.
And part of that is because they are using more data and algorithms, so they really have these very sophisticated models to figure out who is gonna pay back their credit cards on time, who isn't. And yeah, like, they're not in the business of giving away free money, right? That's what a credit card is until you don't pay it off. They're in the business of collecting those exorbitant fees. So they
Right, and they
want
know that
people.
they don't you don't need to pay off your balance for them to profit, like, 'cause there's just
Exactly.
so much I mean, every month there's like a $300 service charge or whatever, for like interest charge on the loan, so, yeah, if you yeah, it makes sense, I guess.
It
I
makes sense,
I
but
just
yeah.
I just feel like our society as a society, we overtrust quantitative metrics, like, we've reduced everything to data. It's just it's I find it stultifying. What is your feeling?
It's exactly that, but it's also a recognition of why we're doing that, and FICO score is a great example. We do need some way of rating people's creditworthiness. And it would be impossible, I would say, nowadays to just have human evaluators go and meet everyone and tour their house and talk to their manager and, do a human assessment. We need something more systematic, and numbers work great. When I teach at a university, when my students graduate, they have a GPA, they need some number that measures how well they did in school. Colleges themselves are ranked by US News and other things. So numbers are just everywhere because they help us organize a huge volume of information, and often there's no practical alternative. That said, it's exactly as you're saying, they take on these extreme importances that are kind of more than they deserve, where we forget that they're trying to be a proxy for the thing we care about, and they become the only thing we care about, and we lose sight, like with the college rankings. We forget that these are just to help us know that there's some top schools and mid-range schools, and we act like, oh, the difference between a school that's number 42 and 47 is really meaningful, when it's not. That's bullshit. So the number, it has a whole life of its own, and we this happens everywhere. So I think this is a big problem, and I don't know, maybe AI is gonna exacerbate it because now algorithms are everywhere, or maybe it's gonna make it better because now an AI can actually work with text and human data, and it's not just number crunching. So we'll see.
Yeah,
But I'm
that's just kind of a hopeful point. I mean, I just feel like any time that you value the quantitative over the qualitative, you're going to be important. I mean, just like look at standard of living. You could be the wealthiest man on earth, Elon Musk, and you could be a miserable son of a bitch. So obviously, it's just not how much money you have; it's what you do with your money, how you value it, what you use that tool for, for the quality of your life. Are you using it to have great experiences with your kids, or are you just using it to make more money? I just feel like when we go down this quantitative path with everything, we put our blinders on and we're just not open to life.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's so this is what I tell my students because I teach at a business school and they're really inclined to quantify, and I teach data science courses where, and what I say is, if you have two factors that are weighing on you and one is quantified, it's a number, and the other is not, like, meaning of life, of purpose, happiness, family, all this stuff. The problem is if one of them is quantified and one is them not, you're going to weigh the quantified one much more heavily. So it actually does blind you to all the more nebulous factors that matter tremendously. So it's
because
not
it's
like
easier
making number.
to quantify
Yeah. So
because
we
it's a
just
yeah.
it feels like a number. It's not just measuring a thing, it's actually boosting its importance, and I think often in an unhealthy way, as you're saying.
Yeah, so, like, I mentioned lampshades as an example randomly, but we see the algorithms that work everywhere. Which industries would you say rely most dangerously on this sort of opaque algorithmic system?
Whew, where to start?
I know.
Which ones
Well, that's
don't?
good. Yeah, we get a couple minutes out of this answer.
I mean, the thing is, it really grew out of okay, finance has been using algorithms, but more on the side of like, oh, let's look for some patterns and maybe we can arbitrage and make some money doing these really fast trades or whatever. But that's kind of within their world. Um, I would say it's been the big tech giants like Google and Meta that are coming in and really using these things on us, the users, where what we see, what we understand about the world, all of our interactions are shaped by algorithms. Who Facebook thinks I should be friends with, what videos TikTok thinks I should watch, what information Google thinks I should be seeing. These are all using algorithms to kind of shape my experience. And that, can go well and it can go very poorly. But the problem is we don't really know how they're working in a very practical sense. And it's very, even if you know how these things work, like sort of like if you're a mechanic and you really know how an engine works, it doesn't mean you know how the car is going to be driving on the road, right? That depends on the human behind the seat. And the same thing with these algorithms, even if in theory you know the idea behind them, let them loose in the world and chaos ensues. So
And
it grew out of the tech industry and now, I mean, I wasn't exaggerating, it's everywhere. Like here's a good example. I tell my students, find an example of what I would consider a tech company that seems like the least tech company in your mind. And my favorite example is John Deere, an old tractor company, an American tractor company. Go to John Deere's webpage. You will see some incredible stuff. They use AI to have scan automatically and figure out where these weeds are, what fraction of herbicide and fertilizer and like it's just mind-boggling. John Deere is basically a tech company. It's just to say this stuff is everywhere. Algorithms, AI, tech, it touches everything.
on a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned should we be about AI-driven decision systems, and why?
Yeah, I'm glad you preface or you qualified at the end. How concerned should we be about AI? I wouldn't touch. That could mean so many things. But about these decision systems, I'd say, a few years ago before generative AI took off, maybe like a 6 or 7 because they were in a lot of places. We kind of know the contours of the algorithms that are driving these decisions. We know a lot of the stereotyping and discrimination and bias that happens in these. But now AI is just, as everyone knows, is proliferating everywhere. Like it's just everything is somehow touched by AI, and we know so little about how it really works and how it operates that we've just pushed ourselves. We kind of embraced this idea that so many important decisions in life will just be made in a way that we don't understand. And, it's one thing if I'm going up for a bank loan, like that's already upsetting. That's where we were maybe 5 years ago. But now we're talking about like which targets military vehicles should be striking. It's just all
Yeah.
kinds of crazy stuff. Like that's literally what we're talking about automating. It's how is that not an 8 or a 9 or a 10?
Yeah, I'm interested how it, like, how it I'm thinking about, like, there's a whole a sector of the population that maybe doesn't have a smartphone. Not a lot of people. A lot of people have burners or whatever, but I go to the library a lot. I'm a library guy, right? I go there because I still have a DVD player, believe it or not, and that's the one place I can go and find a really crappy selection of DVDs, totally random. But, like, I see so many people in there using the internet there on, like, a desktop. I mean, I wonder how that enters into the formula. They just are they figuring what I just said? Okay, these people are in a lower socioeconomic strata because 'cause they're using a computer at the library, and we kinda, pigeonhole them in there that way, or
I mean, a couple interesting things come out with that. One is these companies, whoever they are that we're talking about, they want as much data as possible. And clearly, I think we can agree using a smartphone, they're going to collect a lot more data or be able to, because, for instance, your location. So just to give you an example, it goes back to an earlier question of how these, insidious uses and surprising uses. This isn't conclusive, like proven, but there's been some evidence that the rideshare companies will actually give you higher cost for your rides, like Uber and Lyft, for instance, when your cell phone battery is lower. So if you're like stranded on a street corner, you're down to 5%, you're desperate, you're probably going to be willing to pay a lot. The algorithms have figured this out and they exploit that, or it seems
that's
to.
fucking evil.
That's evil, and there's no laws stopping that because it's not a protected class of discrimination. It's just, you know, capitalism. So that's an example where in a
But I
way,
mean, do
like,
they have to account for that somewhere in their FAQ, somewhere in their mission statement or in the contract? I mean, if you use a service, isn't there a contract
yeah, but
somewhere involved?
there's no laws saying that they need to tell you that kind of thing. So this is an example of what's called personalized pricing, where your personal data, which could include your phone battery life, are used in these algorithms that set prices. And this is coming up a lot in the news lately. We're not sure how pervasive this is, but the example I just gave you was some researchers discovered this. Lena Khan, the former chair of the FTC, gave a speech about a year ago where she's talking like we need to figure out this personalized pricing and maybe either put a stop to it or curtail it in some way. And she cited this battery life issue as an example. Um, but the point is, this is Lena Khan, right? She's a superstar. It was in the head, very high position of the government. She doesn't know for sure if this is happening. Nobody really knows other than the company themselves. There's a chance the company doesn't know, that they just let an algorithm loose and said, go ahead and optimize for revenue and figure out what you figure out. Maybe the algorithm just found this pattern in data and no human is even aware. So we don't have transparency requirements, unfortunately. It's hard to even pin down, like, this is disgusting, you and I agree, but if you tried to say exactly what about this is exploitative, it's hard to say, right? Like, prices go up and down all the time. Buy
But if
try to
it's
buy a
relative,
flight.
that's discrimination. You're discriminating against people with low batteries. Maybe that means people with cheaper phones whose battery life isn't long. I mean, it is a form of
It
discrimination.
is, but as far as discrimination, the main law we have is the Federal Civil Rights Act from the 1960s that has three categories: employment, housing, and I think medicine are the three categories where it's illegal to discriminate in certain protected categories like race and gender. I guarantee you, phone battery life is not a federally protected category.
The opacity of I don't wanna hijack the whole show about just, the fucking evilness of corporations, but this
Do it. I
opacity
want to get you
thing,
riled
like
up.
okay. Well, I go into my Verizon. I'm on Verizon just because 'cause I'm stuck there, right? I got a contract that looks like a Disney contract. It's like I mean, like, it's such a hassle to switch carriers, and I'm gonna have to be paying that one off forever anyway. Like, I probably paid $8,000 for a $400 phone because they're charging me monthly. So I go in, and I think what made me think about this is this like, "Oh, this guy's desperate. His jetpack is running out." Like, as I have to use a mobile hotspot up at the cabin because I get terrible internet. And, I'm walking out of there, and the guy's quoting me prices, how much my bill will go up. But then I get the actual bill, and there's all these extra charges, these taxes, these corporate taxes. And so I go back into the store because I want a little bit of, I want a little accountability, and I'm like, "What are these?" And the salesperson literally tells me, "We don't know. They don't tell us that." So, like, how can that be legal? Like, how can I leave a place, be told by the salesperson, "My bill will be this much," and then I get it, and it's $30 more, and then I go back and ask for there's just 0 accountability. It's just, all right. That's the end of my rant. Did you wanna add a little rant real quick?
Well,
I just
just,
had to get
I
that
mean,
off my chest.
not a rant, but I just want to kind of put that in this larger context of our conversation. And this Robin Hood idea is, I think what you're getting at is we're seeing so many examples of math being used by powerful elite economic figures in whatever sense, government and industry, private, to kind of screw over the little guy. And it's really frustrating and upsetting, right? Like, math is used in these algorithms that are finding your battery is low and learning how to exploit it. Math is used to calculate all these hidden taxes and often to hide them from you. It's just there's so many instances where I think math is making things worse. And I think the larger frame of our conversation is, can we flip it around, right? You said you've always seen it, math is um, collecting economic power, narrowing it.
Right.
And the idea is, can we turn it around? So we'll come
Yeah,
back to it in
good.
our conversation, but I just
We're
want to say
building to that. We're building to
we're
the
building.
revolutionary part of this
But
conversation.
I think you're raising many examples and points that are perfectly valid where we don't know enough, and either that's because there's not enough transparency or because people hide behind math. And they say, "Oh, we can't explain how this algorithm works. It's too mathy and complicated and fancy, and you would never understand, Jonathan. So don't worry about it. We're just going to run this algorithm." And I think that's immoral. I think if you're going to use math against people, you got to show them how it works and explain it in an understandable way. So that's
Yeah,
my
well, we'll
rant.
talk about how they're teaching math in the classroom. That's another thing I want to talk
We'll
to you
get
about.
back
Right
to it.
now, my cortisol is spiking and I feel irritable, which begs, for me, what do the studies tell us about how do engagement algorithms like affect our mental health and our self-worth? I mean, I know they got to work on our self-worth. I'm just thinking about Mick Jagger, I'm just thinking about like, no satisfaction, and so this is that on steroids, but like talk to me about how they affect our mental health. There is studies out there.
Yeah, I mean, first, let me just raise a point. You didn't quite ask about it, but enough people ask me about it that I want to clarify with your listeners. So a lot of people, like in the media and even in congressional offices, they'll say, so just to clarify, these like social media algorithms, they're designed to um, increase rage and anger and incitements to violence and all this stuff, right? Like they're designed to kind of elicit that. And I have to say, no, that is not true. They're just designed to get engagement, just to keep you on the platform, clicking, watching, typing, whatever it is. That's
Okay,
what
but
they're
it's
designed to do.
human nature. They know, but there's a premise there you're not mentioning, which is that we know
Exactly.
about human nature that what is going to, if it bleeds, it leads. We're always talking about that. And like, so
Exactly.
it is, but it isn't. Yeah.
Exactly. It is, but it is. So the easiest way in math to say it is there's a correlation. They're designing it for engagement, but engagement is correlated with a whole bunch of bad stuff. So I just want to mention that. They're not designed to be horrible, but they are foreseeable. It's foreseeable that what they're designed to do will lead to horrible things. But now let me go to your actual question about the mental health. A big example came up in 2001. Oh, sorry, 2021. I've lost track of the years. Frances Haugen, yeah, I believe it was 21.
My phone was
Frances
this
Haugen,
big in 2001, so it's got to be
exactly.
2020.
Frances Haugen was this Facebook whistleblower. She worked inside the company, came out with the stack of like 10,000 pages of purloined documents that she had like. So you can't print documents out on their computers. You can't even copy to a disk and leave Facebook headquarters because they'll know you're taking stuff. So she actually just took her phone. This is amazing, and just took cell phone pictures of like 10,000 screens of chats and documents and everything.
That's what I do
Walked out.
because I'm too dumb to make a screenshot. Like
Just all she just takes screenshots, through her phone. Then she walked out and went to this journalist at the Wall Street Journal and said, "Hey, I've got a lot of stuff and I've seen bad stuff and I want to share this with the world." So they worked together and they reported this. So it was a big deal. She was There was congressional hearings, a whole bunch of stuff, the usual thing where Congress suddenly says, "This is horrible. We have to do something," and nothing happens. But let me zoom in on one really complicated thing that came up, which was Instagram's impact on specifically teen girls' mental health. And the idea was there's so much like physical comparison, there's so much anorexia, kind of eating disorder content, and all this stuff that it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realize that's going to mess up some people and really hurt them. So sure enough, one of these studies, this is like an internal study that happened at Facebook. Now we call it Meta, but happened at Facebook. Oh, sorry, at Instagram, was they actually studied like what the impact of Instagram on these teen girls was. And they had some slides in this internal presentation that Frances Haugen leaked out. And it showed, I'm just going to make up the numbers because I forget the details, but it was something like some pretty high percentage, like, I don't know, 60 or 70% of teen girls, their mental health was harmed by Instagram. So this leaked to the press and everyone was upset. They're saying, how could you have this product that's knowingly harming so many girls? But then Facebook responded. So that's the first half of the answer to your question. The second half is Facebook responded and said, but look, and the rest of their study said, and there's this other 60% of teen girls that are benefited, that they found a community. A lot of them were like LGBTQ members, where Instagram and social media was the safe community that they didn't have before that was helping them. So the punchline is, unfortunately, as much as the media wanted a simple headline, like social media is making, you know, causing all these problems and making all these teen girls miserable, the answer is it is helping some and it's hurting some. And we don't know as a society how to make that trade off, how to make that balance. But
You're
we're
gonna help us.
uncomfortable.
You're gonna help us with this.
We're going to
One thing
try,
is,
but
I'm not good at math, but 60 plus 60 is 120%, so I'm
well,
already
okay,
a
I
little
botched the numbers
circumspect.
there. But, you know,
I thought you were
but
a mathematician.
but
So
those can overlap, right? I could be both helped in some ways and harmed in other ways. I think we all are by social media. So
yeah, no, I mean, I just scroll past the political stuff. I don't let anybody troll me, and, like, I just use it to gather with friends that I haven't seen in 30 years and just keep them on my radar. So I feel like I have a healthy
that is pretty
relationship with
wise.
it. But,
I
like,
like
yeah,
that.
I get some pretty weird stuff. I'm a novelist, so, like, I research a lot of weird shit. So I get some pretty weird stuff, you know what I mean? And they're probably looking
I
at
see.
that going, "This guy's a perv," or, I like whatever, but it's something for my character or something like that, but that
Wait,
becomes part of my
didn't you have one
algorithm.
of the most banned books ever? Is
I
this a
did, yes, Lawn Boy. It was number 2, and then it fell down to number 6 at some point, but we're working
well,
on getting it back up there.
as we know,
There's
numbers
been
are
some more.
everything, so really
Yeah.
focus on that.
Oh god, it was a dream. As a guy who grew up in punk rock bands, I've been trying to, you can't it's just serendipitous. I mean, I love that I had a banned book, but there's nothing about the book I mean, any Judy Blume book would be banned for what mine was banned for.
Hmm.
I think I know the answer to this question. We've been talking a lot about it, but I gotta ask it. I just wanna hear it from you. Uh, who holds more power today for data, the government or the corporations? Or is it just such a murky line in between the 2?
Yeah, I mean, I my take on this, and, what do I know? I'm not like a government person, but my take is we were just kind of brought up with this Orwellian idea of like watching out for Big Brother and the government overreach. And just that was our generation. And while we are fixating on that, the tech giants just ran amok. And I would say the balance nowadays is very much tipped towards these companies. And as you're kind of hinting, like with, especially when like Elon Musk was buddies with Trump for a while, like that the bridge between government and industry is very uncomfortably close in many ways. But I do think overall industry just has like, you know, the best labs, the best technology, all the stuff. I mean, just think of like AI. There was a day where the government was producing some of the best math research. The NSA, the National Security Agency, was doing fantastic cryptology research. All kinds of amazing stuff was happening out of government labs, and it still is. But when you come to the most cutting edge things like AI, it's all happening in industry. They have the most data and the most computational resources. They're the ones building these giant, data farms and and everything. Like I think it's
And
pretty
now they got the
clear.
best lobbyists too, so
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
where
So
the
then they
lines
get the
become
government
blurred.
money to
Yeah.
help. Yeah.
So, quantifying popularity as a metric has changed the artistic landscape. I know that. As an artist, sorting out demand seems tougher than ever. Um, Whereas this seems like a tool that would be designed to help you sort it out, but it seems to me that it's tougher. Can you delve into this with our listeners? Like,
Yeah. I'm still wrestling with this because I'm of two minds. And that's because there's two perfectly valid arguments I could make. And one is that because of sort of recommendation algorithms, these things that are populating Spotify, TikTok, YouTube, everything, that we're all kind of pushed by these algorithmic currents towards the same, very similar, the same content. There's not really this diversity. And there's been some studies that verify that or confirm this. But there's also the completely opposite argument that, we used to have what, like 3 channels of TV, and there was just the standard, like very gatekept community of artists, of news, of everything. And now anyone in the world can be a content creator and can produce stuff and can get a following. And now there's so many like micro communities that you can be drawn into. So I'm sure when you're researching your books, this will happen. Like you'll probably discover a whole world on TikTok or wherever it is of people that are interested in some obscure thing that would never make mainstream culture. So it's a very terrible answer to your question because both are happening. On the one hand, we are sort of
it could be
like
that it's a terrible question. I've been
no,
known to ask
I
those.
think it's a deep, important question. Like I scroll through social media sometimes, like Twitter, for instance, recently, or like X, I guess we're supposed to call it. And it just feels like all the posts are kind of the same. They're all probably shaped by ChatGPT. They're all designed to get whatever engagement they think the algorithm is looking for. Like it just feels the same because everyone's gaming everyone. And that's a shame. On the other hand, there's really nice micro communities, if you can find them, that are very flourishing. So I don't know. I mean, I guess one answer is Reddit seems to be doing very well and it's less algorithmic and more human centric. And I
Yes.
think these ones that are more algorithmic are where we're getting that homogenization. So maybe that's the lesson for us.
I mean, as users, can we realistically game or outsmart the social media formulas, or will they just learn our backdoors and adjust?
Okay, so I love this question. I don't think we can outsmart them in the sense of like, in a literal sense, but I think we don't have to be as manipulated by them. So let me just give you a really concrete example. TikTok, of course, never told us their algorithm, their formula, but a simplified version of it leaked a few years ago. New York Times published this, just very simple little formula. And one of the factors that came up in their equation for measuring engagement was the number of seconds that you're anticipated to watch a video for. So just to really simplify it, let's say I open up TikTok and there's a few videos, and one, the algorithm thinks I'll watch for 5 seconds, one for 8 seconds, one for 10 seconds.
And this is based on you, it's
This is
based on
based
the
on me.
subject, but it's also based on the subject across.
Everything
Yeah.
based on the video, other people have watched the video based on my history, like every piece of data you can imagine. So some fancy AI guesses this. Well, they're going to choose the video that has the most expected watch time. Where this so okay, that's not so surprising or deep, but a little bit of knowledge like that can be empowering because I start to see all these tricks and I wouldn't say outsmart, but I can kind of resist the algorithmic manipulation. I'll see a video that shows something really quickly for like half a second at the beginning and then it moves on to something else. And you're like, "Wait, what? I missed it." So you get to the end and then you rewatch it and you still missed it, so you rewatch it. Or I've seen videos where you watch to the end and then it said, "Did you see that one guy?" You're like, "What one guy?" So you watch it again. All of these things are
Oh, and
tricks
that's a trick. That's not
because if
even
the
just
video is
bad filmmaking, it's an
no,
actual
it's
trick.
all deliberate. If
Evil.
the video is 5 seconds and they trick you into watching it twice, that's 10 seconds of watch time. If they trick you into watching it 3 times, that's 15 seconds. So now as soon as I see these videos where it's pretty clear they want me to watch it more than once, I instantly just move away because I know 2 things. A, they're trying to trick me and I don't want to give anyone that attention if they're trying to trick me. And B, as soon as I fall for it, the algorithm's going to learn that. And the algorithm's not,
It's gonna reward it.
mischievous or whatever, but it's smart. So it's gonna learn that I'll fall for that, and it's gonna find other videos I'll fall for, and I've had this happen. So there's little
Yeah.
things like that
Oh,
where, we can't outsmart, but we can stand up for ourselves a little better if we know the tricks. Just the rules of the game is what I just say. If we know the rule of the game is they're trying to find videos that will like and comment and watch, then we can start to think, oh, if there's an annoying video and a video that makes me angry and I'm tempted to write this is fake and write a comment, I realized, no, they're just trying to trick me into commenting because that's engagement. If they're trying to get me to watch 3 times, they're trying to trick me into engagement. So just being more cognizant, like we all know social media is engagement, but being more cognizant of the details, even if it means thinking a little bit about this math formula, I think it helps us stand up for ourselves.
yeah, well, like the first 27 times I saw a patently false piece of information in a headline, I clicked on it to say, "Hey, this is bullshit,"
Yep.
so and so, whatever it was, like saying somebody hit 50 home runs. I'm like, "No, they only hit 40." Then you start to realize that they're purposely giving you the wrong number just to get you to get, the clickbait thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't think such a thing exists. So, but let's talk about, instead of saying what does a fair algorithm look like, what would a fair algorithm look like?
All right. So fair in what sense? Like what unfairness are we worried about?
Unexploitive,
I think that's
I
hard
guess.
because they're
Yeah.
really dealing with so many people. So there is fairness in a discrimination sense. This came up for Facebook several years ago, where it turned out that the algorithm was showing ads for high-paying jobs like doctor jobs predominantly to men and jobs for nurses predominantly to women. And employment is one of those protected categories. Gender is one of those, protected categories. So this violated the Federal Civil Rights Act. But no human said, let's do this. This is just something that the algorithm figured out that, oh, men seem more interested in these jobs, women more interested in these. So, Jonathan, when you went on, it probably targeted you a certain way. It just used our data. But the problem is our data is based on how the world is and really how the world was. So it kind of traps us in a historical view of society. So that's a big issue of fairness of how can we compensate for that? Gender discrimination, racial discrimination, but that's totally so that let's just say that's already a hard problem that a lot of people are working on. There's no solution necessarily, but it's something people are aware of. But that's very separate from what we were talking about earlier, like using you know, exploiting people when their phone is really low for the rates on the things that they're ordering. That's another form of unfairness. I think you and I would agree, but it's very different than discrimination in the traditional sense. So I don't know. There's not really a good answer, but it is a good question. I think we just have to pay attention to all the things that don't seem ethical or correct and kind of flag them and raise
There we
awareness
go.
and say,
Now
like,
we're
this is
getting to
bad.
brass tacks because your mission in this book is to steal the power back. So now I'm angry and flustered. So now let's talk about stealing the pack. This is the title, Robin Hood Math. How do we do this? How do we begin to steal the power back? We've touched on a little bit of it. Let's get down to, you know,
All right, let's do it.
revolution.
Now that you're all worked up.
Yeah.
So it comes in a couple flavors. In some rare cases, we can kind of actually take math, their mathematical power from the elites. Um, let's say, I don't know, like this leaked TikTok formula. Once you see it, you kind of use it to resist these influences a little bit. But most of the time, what I had in mind is more math has powered an ascendancy of certain quantitative people to high up paying jobs in insurance, economics, finance, a lot of government things, tech industry certainly, or the computer coders, people with stats background, people with numbers backgrounds have kind of risen to the top. If you look at the wealthiest individuals in the world, the list changes. But when I looked, I don't know, a year or two ago, maybe 8 or 9 out of the top 10 were all tech people. You look at the wealthiest companies, same thing, like 8 or 9 out of the top 10 are all tech companies. So I would just say we're in a very lopsided economy right now that's very, very tech oriented. So my idea with Robinhood math there is, all right, I'm not going to be able to use the same math that Google, engineers are using or hedge fund managers are using, but there is math that the insurance industry uses to manage risk. And if we can just make it simple enough, all of us can manage risk a little better. There is math that like goes into Warren Buffett's trading strategy. And he's not like a deep, deep math guy, or he wasn't, but you know, mathy enough that I think we can benefit by looking at what he's doing. So there's just a lot of examples where we're not taking math in the sense of stealing it. We're just saying, hey, why are we letting some people get really rich? And it's not just about money. Like, why are we letting some people manage risk better than others just because those others may not have a math background? So I didn't give you concrete answers, but just broadly, that's the philosophy is let's find ways to use math that helps everyone instead of just a few people.
Well, it seems to me we need like a list of just to help us recognize. Like, there's this guy who I forget the name of it. There's a guy that developed the 20 questions for how to recognize a psyop. Like, if you're getting there's like 20 points. Like, if you're getting the same two media, like if you're getting the same statement, the exact same statements out of multiple networks, you know what I mean? Like, it's just verbatim. And there's like 20 of them. I don't know them all, but I mean, if there was a list, and maybe there is, of things to immediately recognize when you're being duped. Such as if you need to call a lift, maybe like see if the restaurant you're at right before, plug in your phone and get your battery up to 60%. I mean, like, do you know of a concrete, is there a resource that people could look at where we can, because I'm a slow learner, where I could recognize the obvious. I don't want to help the algorithm exploit others. And I can't, as you know, living in a modern society, short of getting off the grid, it's gonna be really hard to completely disengage. But has anybody made kind of a list or a guidelines? I mean, your book is kinda doing that, but, like, I mean, just like a hard and fast, like, if it says this, don't click kinda thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I wish I had an answer, but I don't know of such a list.
Well, just write it. That's what I'm asking you to do here
Trying to
now.
think.
You
I'll
got
try.
time.
I'll
You already
try.
finished this book, write another one. It's just
That's
list.
a good idea. I mean, why
You're
not?
welcome. I get 10%.
There we go. I'll just say like one example that comes to mind is traditionally we think of comparison shopping as going to different stores, right? Like, oh, I try Best Buy, I try Kmart, I shop around. But I think because of these algorithms, just to give you an example, we might need to start thinking of comparison shopping as like you look at the prices on Amazon or Lyft or whatever, and maybe your spouse or your roommate looks at the prices, or you can even open up an incognito tab on your browser and look at the prices. So I think we might be moving to a world where comparison shopping doesn't mean different stores, it means like different user data for the same store. So that could be a principle. If you're seeing very different
Interesting.
prices in your browser tab versus your private incognito browser tab, one of the two of you is being duped. So that's
I mean,
one
it
out of the
seems like we
20.
need to amend this exploitation. I mean, you said it was what? Education. There was three that were safeguarded: medical, educational,
Employment.
and employment. I mean, it seems like we need to add some sort of consumer
I mean,
protection
there is a
to.
consumer protection leg of the FTC. That's why Lena Khan, I think, was interested in this algorithmic pricing stuff. how much teeth they have and how they compete, or not just compete, but like keep up with the tech industry. Like they have so much less funding than they need to really execute their mission. So it's kind of in theory we have that, in practice it's not there.
It's hard to imagine anyone's pushing too hard for it. Uh,
Mhm.
so I want to talk more generally about math now because math's a bugaboo for me. I have 3 kids, and maybe you're not going to like this because you're a math guy, but one of my big complaints is just too much math, man. My kids are doing math. I mean, my kids, they're not learning the parts of speech, but they're doing algebra in 5th grade now. Like, I think I got through high school without doing algebra. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, how do you approach teaching math to kids? Because I understand part of the problem is it's easy to test for, right? They can test math proficiency and therefore get their federal money and stuff like that. And so that's part of the way I feel like we've gotten to this place. But it's like I want my kid to learn more, liberal arts and more, whatever, the hard sciences and history and philosophy, but it's just math, math, math. And I bring it up at the co-op school meeting, and I expect the parents to be a little more hippie like me, but they're just like, "Ugh." I mean, people will say, "Well, how do you expect our kids to compete in the global market?" And I'm like, "Dude, I don't care if my 8-year-old is competing in the global market." So, like, talk to me about like how do you think we should be approaching teaching math to kids? Because you were just saying stuff about there's useful things in math that might help your credit score. There's a useful way to help you game the tax system. There's so many things math could be useful for, but that's not what they're teaching. They're not teaching applicable math. They're just teaching math and then testing for it, right?
All right, so you thought I might hate this question, and I'm a math professor. You're slightly on the math phobic side of things, I would gather. I am 100% aligned with everything you just said. So this is going to be a bad answer because I'm just going to amplify and repeat what you said.
No, that's all right.
But
Anybody who wants to echo me is welcome to.
and maybe I'll get in trouble for saying this with whatever community. But yeah. So let's start with your first point. I think we have this idea that math is somehow economically viable. I'll be honest, like the math I do in my research career is not. It's just proving theorems and doing all this abstract stuff. It's not economically viable. It's just people pay me to do it, so I'm happy to do it. But we somehow have this idea that math is preparing people for these economically viable jobs, whatever that means, computer programming or finance or something. So industries where there is a lot of money right now seem to involve a fair amount of math. So we think, oh, if we give people math, they'll be ready for those.
And yet AI is taking it over.
And
There's
AI
not
is
going to be
taking
these
over, and
jobs, right?
and maybe it's gonna take the math first. But I just wanna first say, that doesn't mean that all math is and should point towards these economically viable things. I think that's the problem. A, there's a lot of really, really, really boring math, and I can't stand it, and I can't stand that they teach our kids and our students so much of this that I think is just so pointless. And I think part of why they do it is they can just have this get out of jail free card and just say, "Oh, it's math. Math is really important, so, we gotta teach this." Never asking, "That specific thing you're teaching us, that's useful? Come on." So that's part of it, but then I think you really hit the nail on the head when you're talking about the grading, and let me tie this back to the earlier part of our conversation. We were discussing how when you quantify and have these metrics, they lose sight of what you care about. And I think that's the thing, is math is a very powerful, I don't even want to say tool. For me, it's a way of thinking about the world. Like literally when I go on social media, I think about the mathematical shape of these algorithms, not the details of the code or anything, just the basic idea of like, oh, there's an engagement formula. And the same thing with credit scores and with college rankings and all this stuff. I just think here's math that's impacting every human being's life. And we have a chance to help people understand this. And yet we're teaching so much boring, irrelevant mathematics. And then we're testing in the most boring, tedious way mathematical skill that I think it's just, I don't know, it's completely lost the plot. Like we've just stopped trying to teach math to help people understand the world. And we're really just teaching a bunch of routine mechanical procedures that we can examine very easily and quickly and then know if we're doing a good job, as you said. So I'm very much with you. And I guess the one, if you could call it a difference between what you and I said, is I think we see the flaws in the current system and the current approach eye to eye, 100%. Maybe the slight difference is I have an optimism that it could be much better. And that's frustrating that we're not there, right? An optimism that you can't attain is very challenging. But I do believe math can be a more equalizing force. I do believe we can teach math that your kids and others would enjoy and find interesting and relevant and would matter, would feel creative. And it wouldn't feel like, oh, I'm selling out my soul and I'm not going to do creative work. I'm not going to do humanities, the things I really want to do because I'm just going to do math. It's going to help show people that math is creative, that math basically was a humanity until it became too economically powerful. And then it lost that creative aspect, became more mechanical. So I think it's there. I think there's the potentials there. I would say it's not the subject's fault. It's just very much the way we think about it, the way we talk about it, the way we teach it. It could be so much better. And I really think the key is I don't know a good term for it, but sort of like, I mean, I don't like the term, but sort of like quantitative literacy. Just understanding the numbers that are in our world and how they shape us, but in a really deep, fundamental way. And recognizing that math can be fun and creative, and it doesn't have to be the way we see it in school.
Okay, you're kind of speaking to the question I have because basically I'm just looking for solutions here. Every week I do this show. It's kind of like it's sort of therapy in a way, especially anytime we're talking about kids or child rearing. And I'm like, what do I tell my 13-year-old who's just like, how am I ever going to use this in real life?
Okay, I mean, honestly, my answer is tell them you won't, but tell them there is really cool math out there that they might use, and even if they don't, they might find really fascinating. That, when you watch a magician perform, you're spellbound by the mystery and you wanna understand how it works. There's math that's like that. If you wanna understand how your social media feed works or how AI chatbots works, there's math that helps you understand that.
But see,
There's
it
so
seems
much
like
math.
math people already have that intuitively. They already want it. I mean, that's
Yeah,
how
but
they
what
approach it. The
what I'm
math
saying is
nerds like that already. I go,
it
"Why do I
doesn't
feel
have
like
to
it's
be siloed away into the math community, right? It
okay.
just that's what's bothers me, and that was kind of the motivation for this book, is we're in a haves and have-nots view of math. Right now, we kind of think that there's some people that are quantitative and mathy, and great, they can go work for Google and OpenAI and get, huge salaries, and there's everyone else. And I just think that's so short-sighted and limiting and unhealthy. I think we just need to really recognize everyone can appreciate and do math if we just made it more relevant and fun and creative and just like intoxicating rather than just,
Well, I don't know if
soporific.
we're gonna get to intoxicating, but so let's talk about, what ways in which you can envision, like, teaching statistical thinking without increasing math anxiety, because that's a big problem. People just get
So
math anxiety.
I wrote this book. It's my first book where I had an agent. We got a trade press, so the kind of press that where it's a division of Penguin. So the kind of book that ends up in Barnes and Nobles, let's say. As a professor and academic, I've never written a book like that before, and it was a really great learning experience. When I was trying to come up with what material to have in there, I thought, oh, I got to have a chapter on Bayes' theorem. Don't worry about that. It is. It's something that has to do with probabilities. So I start the chapter. I say, here's Bayes' theorem, and here's all these cool ways that you can use it in real life, thinking I'm being very grounded and practical for an academic. My editor comes back and said, "You can't start a chapter with 'here's Bayes' theorem.'" Like, that's not how a popular nonfiction book works. She said, "You gotta start with a story." And what I've come to realize is that really is the key. It's the storytelling. Start with something that doesn't seem to involve any math, just like a really relatable experience. Like my wife and I had a baby 4 years ago. We go to the hospital. They recommend these genetic screening tests. You get back the result, and like you have these numbers and you're all this anxiety. That's a real experience. So putting the reader in that situation and then saying there's this formula that'll help you make sense of the numbers and help you like deal with that anxiety and know what to do, then the reader's already invested and brought in, and it makes such a difference. So through this kind of more popular writing, I started to appreciate it's all about storytelling. You don't start with math, you start with something human and relatable, and math is the relief. It's a thing that comes in and saves the protagonist. I think that's what we need to really do from the ground up. Instead of teaching math topics, we need to teach stories where math is an important character.
So, like, treating data literacy more like we treat reading literacy, like
Yeah, I mean, not just
finding
literacy,
the
but even
stories
like
in the math, like whatever Spinoza or something. Like, I mean, because I understand, the connection to logic, right? I have a good logical mind, but I just don't know the formulas. But like, my mind is thinking mathematically a lot. I wrote a novel that had 56 points of view and a bifurcated timeline. You got to have some sort of facility with math and logic to be able to
Mhm.
pull that narrative enterprise off. But like, it's a big leap. I mean, if you don't, I mean, I guess that's why you got to be math literate. I don't know.
Well, it's
I don't. Yeah.
I think what you're pointing out is that it's a matter of how much you care. You cared about the structure of your novel because you're invested in it, you came up with this, you knew the characters. That's the problem is if someone just forces a math formula, here's a equilateral triangle, here's a formula, you don't care. It's like starting a novel with 10 characters and just there's no backstory, they're just doing their thing. Like you're not invested in it yet. So I think we just need to really it's not even just like think of quantitative literacy as literacy literacy. It's really more just think like we have to think of teaching math in a more storytelling manner where the reason you're able to in your brain balance this complicated 52 character bifurcated structure is because you care so much. And if we can get people to care more about the math, everyone who says, "Oh, I can't do math, I'm not good at it." No, they just don't care enough. And I don't blame them. I didn't care about most math and most things. I didn't and I still don't. But when a simple formula tells me why I'm seeing what I am on TikTok, I start to care. So we have to find the things that, your 13-year-old cares about and help them understand why math helps them navigate that. So I,
But
I
I
really
don't
think
know
it's
how it
investment.
does. I'm still asking my question. I mean, like, how did this, how does Fibonacci's code save me 15 cents on olives? I mean, I can't, I'm not equipped to teach him that. I can say the thing about logic. Well, it helps your logical reasoning and it helps you to recognize patterns. It sharpens the mind. I can definitely see in terms of pattern recognition and stuff. But like my experience with math as a math phobe was that even when I learned simple algebraic equations, I would get the right answer and I'd be just as frustrated as if I got the wrong answer. It's like, okay, I'm a monkey here. I did what you told me to. I figured out the thing, but like, goddamn, if I can't make sense of it, like, you know what I mean? So I found it frustrating.
Well, okay, let me say this. It sounds like you're putting yourself in a position of like
Back on the
intellectual
therapy
authority.
couch. Yeah.
You're trying to say like, "Oh, I don't know the math, so how can I teach my child the math?" You don't have to know it. It should be a fun discovery. Like, if you watch a really good mystery on TV together with your child, you're both discovering it at the same time. When you read, I don't know, a Harry Potter book together, you're discovering the characters, it's unfolding. I'm not saying this is easy, but I think that's what math needs to be. It needs to be something where you don't come in as the parent who's an expert and knows it. I think it should be interesting and fun for you to learn about because it'll
Oh, I'm
help you understand
sweating,
your
dude. You're
world.
triggering me. Just the thought of this, because every time she has a question and she's struggling with it, I'm like, oh God. I mean, I'm like, oh man.
Well, okay,
I mean, and it's not fun. I'm just
because
anxious, and
that's
that makes her more anxious. And
but that's too deep because she wants help on her homework. I'm saying reimagine a system where she is having fun learning this with you together, not for a test, not some boring thing in school. Okay, I'm utopian. This is not realistic.
no, no, but I mean, I can
But
see what you're saying. Totally makes sense. But I mean, you could do this because you have the facility to find the story in the math. I don't even understand the math. So how am I supposed to find the story to make it fun? You know what I'm saying?
well, so people should write better books and write better materials that make it
Yeah.
easier.
You see, you got another mandate here. First, you got to write me the list of how to recognize the evil algorithms. Now you got to write me a book, The Stories in Math. God
That
dang,
I would love to.
I should
That
be your agent, dude. I'm up to
there we go.
15% now. First one was 10%. We're up to
Now
15.
it's gone up.
Oh
See,
yeah.
who's good at math
I got to
now?
make money somewhere, dude, because podcasting ain't doing it. Um,
Suddenly, you're making
I'm gonna
suddenly your
circle back.
numbers are coming to you.
I'm circling back to the algorithm for my final question, and this is one I just kind of have thought about during our conversation, and that is what they've done basically with the algorithm, what it has done, what the evil overlords. We've already acknowledged that they're not designing it to do this, but they do have this knowledge that these are the baser parts of human nature. Human nature will react this way. It wants divisiveness. It wants conflict. It wants so they're operating under this premise that they know that, but then they have no actual accountability for what follows from that. Is there a way to where does ethics fit into the algorithm? How do we create is there such thing as an ethical algorithm? It's if it's just all based on people's impulses to click or not to click or how do we create an algorithm that's ethical? Does that even make sense? Or are those
Yeah, it
two
does.
diametrically opposed?
It does, but I don't have a good answer, but I can talk through the interesting thing. Oh, so this is one thing you do in lots of subjects, but especially in math. You don't know how to answer most questions in math, but a lot of math is asking the good questions. So I think you asked a really good question, and I'll try to clarify it a little bit and ask some further questions. So, remember this story about Frances Haugen, this Facebook whistleblower?
Mhm.
What happened was, I think she'd worked at Google previously and then quit. Then a Facebook recruiter came to her and said, "We'd love for you to come work for us." She was like fairly, big shot at that time. And she said, "I will work for you precisely if I can work on the sort of like ethics team within Facebook." So going back to your
Cool.
question, does that exist? Yes, Facebook had a team. They called it safety, but same thing. So the recruiter said, "Sure." So they hired her. And the reason why she became a whistleblower and very publicly is she became disillusioned. She saw a lot of really scary, bad things, like, you know, what some people call genocide in other countries, all kinds of incitement to violence, hate speech, horrible, horrible things. So she's seeing this happening, seeing that the algorithms are absolutely playing a role. You can never say it causes it, but it certainly is a factor that probably increased the chance of it happening. And what really got to her is she saw things that could not fix the algorithm, but could nudge it in the right direction. Oh, if we downweight this a little bit, you upweight this a little bit, then we'll have maybe 30% less incitement to violence. And every time she and her team had a proposal like this, it would go up to the higher executives. We don't know if this means Mark Zuckerberg or somewhere in between. And basically, not every time, but most times, they would say that'll cut against our bottom line too much. In other words, like, yeah, we could make the platform safer, but we'll lose too much money, so we're not going to do it because there's no accountability. So that's to say, like, no, like, even if we did everything she recommended, we'd still have a ton of horrible, toxic stuff on social media. It wouldn't fix it, but we could reduce it a little bit. I have to admit, I feel a little bit like these things have an infinite amount of horribleness, and infinity minus five, infinity divided by two is still infinity. So I almost feel like, what's the point? Like, I feel like we need a total reboot.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Otherwise,
it's if whatever you do to try to fight against this ends up it cuts too much into the bottom line. I mean, that's just the thing about business. It's just business. That's
and now,
the final conclusion. No matter what formula you're just going to run up against that. Well, sorry, because business has no ethics built into it. The bottom line
well,
is that's the golden rule of economics. Is like
and now we have a fascinating example with the chatbots. We have all these companies like Google, XAI, OpenAI, Anthropic that are all producing their own chatbots. And the funny thing with chatbots is they do have ethics. Like, they explicitly are coded how they should behave, what they should say, what they should censor, all this kind of stuff. And all the four or however many companies I named, they all believe that theirs is the most ethical. Like, Elon Musk thinks his is the most ethical because it's the most free speech. And other people think it's the least ethical because it's the most toxic and offensive. They think theirs is the most ethical, but then he thinks theirs is the most censored. And it just makes you realize, this is why need the humanities. Here we directly have a bunch of corporations trying to bring ethics into their product that millions of people are using, and no one can agree on what ethical means. And that's because there is no one answer, right?
yeah, well, we need more labor force concentrating on those questions. We need to, as a
Yeah,
society, it
exactly.
seems like we need to sort of reallocate our resource or our human resources, but there's
Exactly.
that pesky bottom line. How are we gonna pay for it if we
Exactly.
can't ship the co okay, bonus question. 7,243 times 271.
Not me, wrong guy.
Okay, just checking, just checking. I figured I'd just have to one up you just one time before that. I didn't
Every
expect you to get
time.
the answer is, I don't even have a calculator handy, so
Let me tell you two things.
I couldn't even be able to get it's got, like, at least 8 figures, though, I think. He is Noah Giansiracusa. The book is Robin Hood Math. I found him fascinating. He made me not hate math. I don't feel anxious. So take control of the algorithms that run your life, people. Go out to your nearest independent bookstore or your Barnes& and Noble. Just even the Evil Empire if you have to. If you're sequestered somewhere in a snowstorm, you can go there and get it. Noah, thanks for entertaining my knucklehead questions and for being our fresh fist in hell this week.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you. I'm glad you're out there with the math heads.
I think
We
we're all
need you.
math heads.